Welcome everyone to another pick a card reading. Today's reading is all about what is your mission with your soul twin. And it doesn't presuppose this reading that you have met your soul twin yet, or even necessarily that you will meet your soul twin in this life. You may connect more in the 5D, in the unmanifest potentially. So you don't have to have met someone that you would call your soul twin at this point. It may be your connection is more subtle. But in other situations, it may be that you've met someone and you're thinking they may be a soul twin, and you're wondering what that means for your relationship, or even if it's a friendship, because not all soul twins necessarily have to be in romantic relationships in every life. It may depend on what they're meant to do together. So it could be any of those things, and I will try and touch on circumstances where it looks like you've met and circumstances where possibly it looks like you haven't yet, if Spirit wants to make that clear for a collective reading. But it could touch on any of those things. But we're going to have a look at what's the spiritual purpose of the connection, and what does that materially look like? What will that manifest in the world in one form or another? And any other information Spirit can give that might help you identify if you are with your soul twin at the moment, or with a soul twin, depending upon your belief in such things. So as with all pick a card readings, the important thing is to pick the pile that you most resonate with. You can, of course, look at more than one pile. You may potentially have more than one scenario where a soul twin may be connected to you. That's completely up to you. But to help make the decision, I have a rose quartz on pile 1, I have a dragon blood on pile 2, and I have a hematite on pile 3. If you don't know yet which one you resonate to, then possibly pause the video before going on and choose. But once you know which one or ones you want to go to, the timestamps are in the description box below, and I'll see you in your reading. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So these first cards were under the crystal that you chose, and there's a few other cards that were also, which we'll get to a little bit later in the reading. But these are to look at what is the spiritual purpose of your connection with your soul twin in this life, in whatever form, as I said in the introduction, you connect, whether it's in the manifest or whether it's in the 5D, and whether you've met them yet or whether you've yet to meet them. The spiritual energy around this is interesting. It looks as though the process, or what it is all about, is finding the courage and the energy to overcome pain and anxiety in some way. We have the Knight of Wands, which is a card of confidence and of getting out and doing things. Sometimes the Knight of Wands can be a little bit overly confident. Sometimes it can go and tilt at windmills, and as Don Quixote would do, and act a little bit rashly, sometimes act before thinking. But for the most part, there is a sense of energy and dynamism, and it's next to the Nine of Swords. And so the Nine of Swords, all swords cards in the upper levels, like 8, 9, 10, are a little bit scary sort of cards to get, but they're not scary because there's something really awful going on. It's because in our head we can make things so much worse than they actually are. We can imagine the worst. And so it looks to me as though either in this life already, if you've met your soul twin, or maybe in a past life, you or your soul twin, or together, you've acted rather rashly maybe, and that has caused anxiety. So in fact, what's going on is that in this life at this point in time, one or other of you, or both of you if you were together, aren't acting as much as you could do, because you're needing to process this sense of anxiety that comes with possibly doing something before you have all the facts and so forth. It looks as though whatever this was cost quite a bit, either materially or in terms of love and connection. We have the Queen of Pentacles reversed, and we have the Empress reversed. So the energy around that feels as though part of the connection this time is to deal with the anxiety that stops that sense of commitment and togetherness, and stops the sense of being able to really nurture each other and have the abundance that comes from having that connection together. It may very well be at the moment, pile 1, that if you have met someone who could be a soul twin, fear about the intensity of the connection, or fear about some material consequence, or even in some cases, maybe even the approval of parents, is stopping you, is stopping the action. So I feel as though the spiritual connection here, what you're meant to be working through together if you do meet, or working through with others if it's not right to be meeting in this life and you're just connecting on a sort of spiritual level, is to bring back a sense of courage, is to be able to overcome the fear of consequences, because the mind, particularly on a spiritual level, can be incredibly powerful. And if we have a very strong vision, if we hold a very strong vision in our minds about something not working out, something not returning on the investment of whatever it is, then that's what we will tend to manifest, even if it's just because we fail to act. So I think for my pile 1, the spiritual connection between you is to bring back courage and bring back that sense of vision and creativity and fire and passion that is promised by the Knight of Wands. Get out of your heads and then therefore be able to turn these two around so that there is a sense of abundance and commitment and being able to be together. It's possible, I think, that in a past life, some of my pile 1 with your soul twin, you were not able to be together because of family issues, because of societal issues, because of status, because of money. There's something that stopped it, I think. And it may well be that the purpose this time round is to meet in not exactly the same situation, but a situation where you have to get past your fears to be together. So if anybody is with their soul twin now, then it may be that there is anxiety around whether or not this is something that is going to last. And again, I think that would be coming from something that happened in a former life, if that's the case. But I think for most of you that have come to this reading, it's quite possible that you're in the early stages of having met the person that you think is the case, and it's caused this amount of fear, and that's your first indication that it probably is a soul twin, and it probably is connected to something like this. If you haven't met someone, it might be that you find it hard to commit to others because there's something painful from the past in the connection, something that was unresolved and unmaterialized, and you're looking for that person. And I think then the question would be, is whether or not it's going to happen in the 5D, if it's going to happen in the unmanifest rather than in this life, and whether you're potentially denying yourself other forms of connection, if that's the case. But I think my feeling is that for most of you, you've probably met somebody who falls into this category, and the thing that you're meant to be doing spiritually together is trusting more that you can be together, that there doesn't have to be another cost for it. So let's have a look at the other cards that were under the crystal to see what is a manifestation of that connection and that love in this life. So firstly, this is really interesting. We've got the Knight of Wands twice. And the interesting thing is it's mirroring, if you see, because the Knight of Wands in the spiritual level is right next to the anxiety causing card. Whereas the Knight of Wands here, in a narrative reading in that direction too, is next to pleasure and joy. This is saying that at the moment there are things that have yet to come out and there are decisions that are yet to be made. It is possible for some of my pile 2, it's because you haven't met the person yet. You just have a sense maybe in dreams and connections. It could be a bit of a twin flame scenario, for instance. There's something maybe that hasn't manifested yet. But for many of you, it just might be the decision that you need to make to move forward and go towards the joy, because underneath you have this sort of sense of there's a price to pay for this, or there's always something, hidden in invisible ink that's going to come to the surface. And part of it is to trust beyond that, to not live in this sort of sense of anxiety that the moon also could trigger, particularly with the 9 of Swords, because there's pleasure. What is meant to happen in this life is to have pleasure, is to enjoy each other and to be able to act and feel confident in that. So there's definitely some imprint from a past life, I would say, impacting on this. But this is saying that the manifestation of it in this life is not the same cost. It's not the same thing. But I just think that for some of you, there'll be something a bit like it at first that has got to make you part of the journey is to claim it this time. So it may be that friends tell you the person isn't right for you, your family might not really like the connection, or it might have a material thing that you have to think about, like moving cities to be together or something like that. It looks like the spiritual lesson is to claim this because it wasn't claimed in the past. And that's not meant as a criticism. It's just the spiritual side of this is to bring back that Knight of Wands and to connect it to pleasure, not to a sense of pain or anxiety. So let's ask Spirit for 4 more cards around how that could process. Once you've sort of got that aha moment, that part of the point about this is there is a choice to make so that you can bring this into being. And if you haven't met the person, maybe it's a choice to look towards pleasure from action and not fear from action, so that energetically you open this up. What else would Spirit advise for you? So this is interesting. There's actually a very strong sense around this of electronic communication, I have to say. Page of Swords is often that. It's reversed here, so again, it hasn't occurred yet. So there may be, maybe for some of my Pile 1, you have already made a connection with someone, maybe through social media, that you think could be a connection, and but you're sort of a little bit worried about testing the waters any further potentially. Or it might be that communication has been a bit of an issue. Perhaps you like to text a lot and they don't, or something like that. There's maybe something there that's affecting your sense of confidence about this, even though underneath there is a sense that, yes, this could really work out. So that might be it. It might be just at this point in time, they have different styles about doing this to you, and so it's making you question whether or not you can bring this into being. Certainly, there's other people involved. I think I don't get the sense it's sort of like a triangle or anything like that. I feel more like it's family or friends. I think there's other people involved and everybody's got an opinion, and it's quite exhausting. Like sometimes it may feel like, oh, really, is this worth it? But this is the point. This is a spiritual purpose, to make you claim your enjoyment, claim your pleasure, claim your right to love, and to make that decision. So Spirit is again saying that whether you know the person now or not, when you come across them, and I do feel this reading is saying you are going to come across this person in this life. These cards feel more to me like something that is going to happen, where you get a do-over almost and you get to choose. Then you do need to make the choice. And you do need to make the choice about what is going to make you happy, because the energy is all towards that. It's just the fear. And I must say, and I say this so often, but I'm going to say it again, that soul twin, twin flame relationships, all those sort of energies in and of themselves tend to cause anxiety. You often get the Tower card coming up with that. And I never see that as everything breaking down. I just see it as being so overwhelming when it happens. So I think that part of the point about this, and part of the reason why a soul twin may come to you in this life, is because maybe it's only that degree of importance that would make you make the choice to move past the anxiety. So it's almost the reverse for you, Pile 1. It's almost as though you would maybe not commit to relationships or not really go after your true heart's desire unless it was such an overwhelming thing that you had to do it, and that makes you make that decision. It's possible, Pile 1, that in the past life you were the one who decided not to go through with it. I'm getting that sort of sense. A lot of it comes down to you, but some of it, it's not. There's always two sides to every story, and I think your soul twin may not always communicate as clearly as you would like, or in quite the way that you would like, but they're obviously going to need to learn some lessons from this as well. But this is not their reading, I guess. This is your reading, so that's why it's focusing on it to that degree. So let's have a look at some other oracle cards to get some other information on this mission. So I'm going to start with one that is about love relationships, because by far most soul twin relationships will end up being that. I mean, it's not exclusive, but generally speaking they are, and this one certainly feels that way. Okay, so for a start, this is definitely saying that other people are getting involved. And the good news in a weird way is that strings and influence are both reversed. So it does suggest that your spiritual mission with your soul twin is to reject the strings of others, the influence and the ideas of others. And that is great. So the rejection there, I think, is to others who are giving you all the 10 reasons why you shouldn't be together, or why you should focus more on your career, or whatever it might be that you're hearing at the moment. So, but do be aware, there's a lot of stuff potentially that could be said around all of this. It could come from jealousy, or could come from misunderstanding. And there's also the influence of communication itself. So if, as I say, you have different communication styles, you need to take that into account. It does look as though you have a fear of rejection, and that's of course natural. We all have that if it's not clear yet. I think that what Spirit would be saying here is just give it time, that whatever in the past life, I think the rejection was materially based, not of the heart. And I think this time round, Spirit is saying there might be all this white noise around it, but there isn't the same reason for that. Now, if you have thought you've come across a soul twin and you've been rejected, I suspect this is saying that's not the right one. It may have felt that way, but it reminds you of your soul twin rather than being the right one, because this looks to me as though the fundamental thing is when you come across this person, and I think you will, you have to reject the views of others and go for the connection. It reminds me a bit of Jane Austen's story Persuasion, if you're familiar with that. That was about somebody who initially rejected somebody because of family and status, and eventually they were able to get together. But it's a very good example of other people being involved in one way or another. So let's ask another oracle for a little bit more information for you, because I do think many of you may have met this person, and so you're kind of toying with this at this point in time, or you're in a relationship but it's not as deep as you want it to be, and there's something about communication, but there's also other people's views involved in this. There's a lot of white noise around it. So let's see what else we can get you for advice about your mission. And your mission, I really think, is about owning your heart, both of you owning your heart over and above the needs of others. Okay, so the first card is Pomp. Yeah, I do think, certainly in a past life, and even possibly in this life, maybe there's something around status, there's around communities, there's around cultural differences, there's around money, expectations, those sorts of things that potentially there. But Pomp is Pomp, Pomp is not anything really that material. It's just the appearance and the status of things. It's not anything real. So again, I think that in the past life there may have been something that was much more rigid and difficult to get through, whereas this time round it's more around appearances. We've got Aquarius too, so you may be Aquarius or have Aquarius strongly, or your soul twin might, depending on whether you know your chart or theirs. It doesn't have to be the case. It could also be Aquarian types of personality traits, which are very much living in their head, and they're very philosophical, they're very communication oriented, they're ahead of their time in many ways, very quick. So communication, again, is very important here. That's a very Aquarian thing. It would mean that if either of you are strongly Aquarian, that will be very important to get that balance right. And it could be connected. It could be indicating, as I said before, connections of an Aquarian nature, of a technological nature, social media and so forth. So given that we've got that astrology energy, let's just have a little bit of a look about any other astrological energy that could be around this mission for the two of you in this life. Okay, so it's all pretty much there, what I've been talking about. So firstly, the fifth house is all about romance, love, also creativity, hobbies, pleasure, joy, all those sort of things. You are meant to be able to be together in this life. You are meant to be able to enjoy love and romance. It's meant to be like that. You may well meet through something quite creative. That's a possibility, again, so communication. But that's what you're meant to be doing. And the fifth house is ruled by the sun, and the sun in your chart is that's the sun tarot thing, but the sun in your chart is your life purpose. The sun, of course, in tarot is really all around joy and happiness and that kind of thing. So that's the energy. That's what you're meant to be doing that this time around. Then we've got Mars, and you remember I talked about the tower relationships, like they're so intense. This is this again, because in tarot the tower card is connected with Mars, so it's a lot of energy around it. It's a lot of intensity. You could very well have very strong Mars connections. It could also be the divine masculine in this type of situation, and that doesn't mean that you have to be a woman or they have to be a man. It's just that kind of energy around this. And then we have a square, and that suggests that there is some tensions that are occurring, and I think very much particularly in the material. But just to get a little bit more idea about what that square is, I'm going to use the astro dice. I'm going to use one of them, which is the one about the planets, just to see what the square energy is. So this is Uranus, which is all about major change and very much a tower energy. So that's the strength of this connection. Square Jupiter. And Jupiter is all about expansion. It is about joy. It is about happiness, all of those sort of things, very fifth house type energy. And so joy coming from something that is very Uranian, very mind-blowing, which is what, soul twin connections are like. But it's in square, so it is the square between the intensity and the joy. Squares can bring things into being, but they can also make it tricky when you do it. And so it is about owning that joy again. I think that's a very strong energy around this for you. So last but not least, because this is around soul twins and so something that is deeply spiritual, I want to use a pack that's called Soul Cards. It's a pack that doesn't have any particular meaning to it assigned. It really is what you feel when you look at it. So I'll tell you what I get from the card that I pulled for that for you. But I'd suggest that you also maybe pause the video at the end of the reading and just look at it yourself for a few minutes and see what it says to you as well too, because these cards are very profound. Oh, that is so beautiful, that card, when you think about it for a soul twin. I mean, it's got the sense of the sun and the moon looking down and up towards each other. It's got the sense of the soul twin mirroring and balancing the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And there is such a sense of calm and peace and bliss there. And it's so close. Like, to me, that just feels so close. So I really think it is saying that this time round it's going to be easier as long as you don't live into the drama of whatever some past life was, or even if you've had issues around you with other people's views, if you can move away from that. The destiny, the mission is to get to this, is to get to that sense of complete, calm, centered connection. So I think that's a very lovely prognosis for you, Pile 1. And I hope you've already met the person. If not, I think that you will. I do think this is about love this time around, and I do think that it's about being in the manifest, not just being in the sort of spiritual realms. And your mission is to be together in that true, romantic, loving way, regardless of what anybody else thinks. So I do wish you well with that. I hope that that does resonate, and I hope you enjoyed the reading. And if so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you have any time, I'd love to hear about your thoughts in the comments below. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next reading. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. These first 4 cards are meant to represent the spiritual lesson that you and your soul twin are meant to be on, the mission that you're meant to be on spiritually in this life, regardless, as I said in the introduction, whether you meet in the material or not. Though I suspect, looking at this, that the only way it's really truly going to be manifest is if you meet in the material. And why I'm saying that is that we have here the Ace of Wands reversed and we have the Ace of Pentacles reversed, which suggests to me that in the past, spiritually, you haven't been able to, there's been an idea, a creative project together, something material in the world that you could have brought brought into being, but it was not realized for some reason. And this isn't meant as a criticism. Anything could have got in the way of that. Life has a tendency of throwing challenges at us all the time. So I feel as though in a past life, you had an opportunity to do something that was probably incredibly creative and new together, but it didn't quite take for whatever reason. And so this time round, there is the need for the courage to do it with the Seven of Wands, to be able to take, once you have met, if you haven't already, once you have met, to take that on again, to really give whatever. There's something that the two of you together can do, create, that is new, that is different, that is potentially world-breaking, depending upon how you want to live your lives and what you want to do with your lives. And it may take some courage to actually bring it out into the world and make it be. And but that's what you're meant to be doing, because you, and I think both of you are in this case, you're coming up as the magician. It's a very, very, very high degree of spiritual ability and power here, probably an extremely high degree of knowledge of the occult arts. Whether you know it at this point in this life, I would say that you have both been involved in that and have been master manifestors on that level, very much able to bring things into being. But I just think that something has happened in a past life together where either you were kept apart so that you couldn't do this. Like I get a sense even of people who could have been in some sort of mystery school or something, and they were literally kept apart because of the degree of power that would be involved if they came together. Or you weren't able to bring the thing into being for whatever reason. It could be as simple as you were, both died young, for instance, because it was back in a time where medical health wasn't as good. There's something that stopped it before, and your spiritual mission together this time round is not to have been deterred by that on that spiritual level, to remember who you are, to remember that you're the magician. So let's have a look at the cards that were also with these under the crystal that you chose to come to this reading. And this is some cards to look at how your connection this time might be manifesting, if you've met already or if you are yet to meet. So wow, you guys, the High Priestess and the Magician, there is something very, very spiritually strong about this. There is something that has the mark of spiritual genius about it. And as I say, of real knowledge in this area. If you aren't doing stuff in this area now, then you're going to remember when you're together, because you will be doing something with it. So I think many of the people who've come to this reading are probably tarot readers or magicians or spiritual healers or something. There's something like that it's too strong, I think. And if you haven't for some reason, then it's worth maybe looking into it, because you just have such a natural ability. And it may be that reopening and remembering that about yourself helps to bring this into being. It is definitely meant to manifest something in this world. It feels like a business idea or a creative project that you bring together. Now, this doesn't mean that you wouldn't be in a love relationship. I suspect you will be with the Knight of Cups there. So, and it may be that the thing that really triggers bringing this into being is one or other of you having the courage to make the romantic offer to the other, so that you actually start to bring that energy together. If you aren't already together, if you've met someone you think it could be, that might be the key. Or if you meet someone in the future. There's something, the other challenge you have around you is that one or other of you deals in a very conventional sort of environment. Like, you are both, as I say, there's a kind of mark of genius around it. You are very, very knowledgeable, but you're also very, very creative. You channel things, I think, from the unmanifest and the new and ahead of your time. But there is potentially a connection around you that is a little bit more conservative. So it may be that part of the courage is to take that belief in yourselves together and take it beyond whatever the conservative is. It might be, for instance, that you meet and become involved with your soul twin and the two of you come up with some amazing creative project, but it's not something that traditional publishing or traditional sorts of industry gatekeepers would see. You'd need to do it together on your own, but it's then going to definitely manifest into something. So that's just an example, but there's some conservative energy around. It could also be, for some of my pile too, that your soul twin, when you meet them, is very different to the sort of person that you've gone out with before, very different to your social circle, very different to the expectations of family and friends and so forth. But nothing's stopping that connection, I've got to say. So let's ask Spirit for a little bit more information on how to really start to manifest this Queen of Pentacles, this real sense of not only true connection between the two of you, but really manifesting, like unlocking that really strong potential that's there. And the Magician's come up again. Yeah. You guys are amazing, so let's just accept that and run with that. So given that incredible connection, that incredible level of ability in this area, and this is definitely saying there's authenticity and a real true emotional connection, so that's lovely. But you are going to have to negotiate and deal with other people, whether it's around, because the two of you come together and you're like a power couple, and what you can bring into the world is so much more together, but it's still something new that other people don't understand. Whatever it might be, there are people who are going to try and negotiate with you to make you more like what they're used to seeing. They just won't get you to some degree, I think. That's one of the things around this mission is remembering who you are, and the fact that what you're meant to bring into the world together is something new. And possibly that happened before. Possibly it was that it wasn't accepted by the industry gatekeepers before, for whatever reason. And this is the same pattern coming out. And it's saying that and you may need to be a little bit clever, a little bit tricky about it. Doesn't mean that you're being duplicitous, but you may need to be a little bit clever and inventive about the way that you deal with this sort of conservative energy. Because if you spend too much time trying to appease it, then that can exhaust your energy, and it takes too much of this. It's getting back to what this is and finding your way, negotiating your way around it so that you can really bring it into being. So this is pretty exciting, part two. So let's have a look at an oracle that is about love. So let's have a look at some of the energies that will be impinging on what I think will be a love relationship for the good, or any other challenges that Spirit might be wanting to tell you about for your mission. Okay, so I think that Spirit wants to say there's nothing in your relationship that's going to be the issue here on any level, and it's actually that it's very unlikely that anybody's going to try and get in the way of the two of you being together. You've got family, you've got commitment, you've got respect. The only possibility would be potentially family if they were the conservative ones around, but I think this is really just saying it's picking up the Knight of Cups and the Queen of Cups. It's saying that the issue that you two are facing together is not one about whether you can be together as lovers, together in a family, committed, any of those things, and you have great respect for each other. You know that you're kind of dealing with your equal. It's a very, very strong connection. The issue is not about that. It's about whatever it is that the two of you are meant to bring into the world. So now that we've established that, let's ask another oracle for a little bit more advice for you. So that's interesting. Firstly, we have Capricorn. So that's again really, really bringing us to the issue around the material world. I think that most of you, you're going to do some sort of business activity together, or something that has a material output of some sort. And Capricorn as an energy there can be a bit conservative, so it could be picking up some of this. Maybe that energy is coming from someone with strong Capricornian traits, or Capricorn strong in their chart. One or other of you may, because Capricorn is also very good at manifestation, at status and money and the material things in the world, so it could be picking up that as well. But I think it's saying the same thing. There's a business thing, there's a creative thing, there's something material you're meant to bring into the world that is new, and that in its own way, pile 2, could become the new standard and the new conservative thing. Like maybe the hurdle you have to get over is to get people to understand what you're doing, because it then becomes the new standard as opposed to being the thing that it's being held against and people aren't understanding, because you've also got innocence. So there's something very pure about what you're trying to bring in. It's not exactly the same as what other people do. So however it is that the two of you manifest this thing together, it comes from a very pure place. But I do think it has the capacity to become its own new standard bearer. So let's have a look at a little bit more astrological energy around your mission, pile 2. So we've got the 10th house, and that definitely, again, talks about material things, career, being out in the world. Its planet is Saturn, so it's very earthy, and its ruling sign is Capricorn. So I just think it's definitely saying, yes, you have a material purpose, a material mission together. Then we have fixed signs, which may be you coming up against fixed attitudes. As I say, I do think that might be the main thing that you have to, and I think you had to deal with it before too, and this is a better opportunity for whatever reason for you to come and do something with it. And we have a square. Now, a square aspect in astrology is a very dynamic aspect. It can bring things into being, but it isn't easy to do it. So I'm going to use one of the astro dice that has planets to see what is this square energy that Spirit is trying to talk to us about. So firstly, we have Mercury. So that's around communication. It's around how we interact. And of course, the Knight of Swords is a very communication-oriented card. And then that's square Saturn. Okay, so Saturn is connected obviously over there with the 10th house as well. So Saturn is all about structures and what is already in place, and Saturn can be slow. Now, so we've got Mercury tends to be a very fast energy. It's mercurial. That's what they talk about. It's about communication, it's about speed, it's about the new. Saturn is slower, it's quite fixed, it takes time, it takes maturity. So I think this is really showing the balance. It's how you get that balance. So I think that Spirit is saying it's not that you have to completely throw away everything that is conservative or in place, or technique, or whatever it might be, if it's a creative thing, that you will be building on a tradition, but Mercury is bringing in something new. The other thing around this too is that really strong sort of psychic occult energy has a Saturnian nature to it. It is something that is deeply about knowledge and about the ancient and antiquity and, you know, unrealized knowledge and so forth. So there is something about the way you communicate, the way you think, and then those really, really established things that is part of the energy, part of the mission that you have in this life with your soul twin, pile 2. So I want to finish up, because that's quite profound, but I want to finish up with one of the more profound decks that I have, which is one called Soul Cards, and it doesn't have fixed meanings to any of the cards. It really is, you look at the images and you see what they say to you. So I'll tell you what I get from it, but I would also suggest that maybe before you click off the reading, when it finishes, that you maybe pause it and just contemplate the image yourself and see whether it sort of tells you anything more about your mission with your soul twin. Wow. So this looks to me, there's a couple of things that I sort of see. One is the sense of sort of like the emerging energy coming from a cry of something new, a cry to the universe, a cry of it looks almost like it looks both an adult and also a child. It is something new to me, and it is letting its voice out, that Mercury thing, and it goes very, very fast. You see this energy sort of like spiraling out, enormous amount of energy, enormous amount of speed, enormous amount of creative purpose to that. But it is about voicing something. So I think that something in this is about you finding the voice, the two of you finding a voice possibly together, or helping each other find your voice. to bring in the new. And when you do it, it goes so incredibly fast. Which doesn't surprise me because, as I say, with two magicians and the high priestess in there, you're coming with a considerable spiritual kit bag, I have to say, pile 2. So I hope that resonated for you. I hope that it gives you some advice and guidance if and when you meet your soul twin, because I think you will if you haven't already. And I hope you enjoyed the reading, and if so, please like the video and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in future readings. If you have any comments, please do share in the comments box below. Welcome pile 3 to your reading. These first cards are meant to represent the spiritual purpose of your connection with your soul twin in this life, whether or not you meet. I suspect from this you will probably meet, because one of the cards is the Knight of Cups, and that suggests a romantic connection, and a romantic offer is part of this. But if you haven't already met your soul twin, it just means you probably have yet to do it. If you have met someone that you think is your soul twin, then possibly this reading might help you either confirm that or make you think about it differently. The soul mission is really interesting. It looks as though there was a choice, or there is a choice this time around, and potentially there was before. I often think soul missions with soul twins are to resolve or redeem something that might have happened in a past life. So this all appears to be about meeting and being around each other at a time when there is a lot going on. There is a lot of forward momentum. There's a lot of power around this. With the King of Wands and with the Chariot, there's a sense that maybe in a past life, and possibly even in this life, one or other of you is in an extremely prominent position, or is likely to be. And there is a lot of energy and a lot of speed and a lot of things to balance, either on a work level or on a creative level, or I feel on a being seen in the world type level around this. It feels very visible and it feels very fast moving. And there's possibly a lot of romantic attention on either you or your soul twin, or both of you, as a result of coming together for some reason. But it's very high power, it's very high energy and very visible. And it's hard sometimes to balance all of that and to make the decisions that need to be made. It looks as though maybe in a past life there was a choice about whether to be together or not, because of something that was happening almost on the world stage or the community stage, whatever it might have been. And possibly you may have decided not to be, or your soul twin may have decided not to be. Or it might be that you were together but it wasn't as visible in some way, it was hidden. But this is not meant to be hidden. You are meant to be, if you are together, and I think that there is every chance that you will be, and there is a purpose to you being together. It's like it needs to be an equal thing where both of you are seen, and you are seen as a couple. It just feels like one or other of you might have been hidden away a bit in a past life. The decision to be seen as being together was not made. And so this time round, there is the purpose of making it more visible in whatever term that means. So let's have a look at the other cards that were under the crystal that you chose to come to this reading, to see how this might manifest in this life. So this does look like, maybe in the past life, and I think definitely in this life, there's a lot of attention on this. There's a lot of mental energy being put into it, and possibly one or other of you spends a lot of time going from an initial idea, whether it's in business or academia or study or whatever it is that you're doing, through to almost the exhaustion of the idea and back again. It feels like there's a kind of a circle, and it just keeps going round and round and round, and it's very much in their head. So I think either you or your soul twin lives very much in their head. Maybe you both do, and part of what draws you together is that you're constantly on this search for the next great idea, the best scientific understanding the mysteries of the universe, whatever it might be. And that tends to take a lot of the attention, and maybe it dims the light of what could be seen in the world and does keep it a bit hidden. There's certainly a need for more balance. I do think that one or other of you in a past life, and possibly again this time at the moment or when you meet, one or other of you has far more of a public profile, far more demands intellectually or work-wise on them, and is perhaps not as in balance as they could be. And part of the purpose of this is to free that up so that the decision is made to prioritise the connection, because this is a powerful connection that should be of equals. But there's something imbalanced in the way that it's seen or in the energy that's being put into it. And I do think that one or other might be a bit of a intellectual workaholic. So let's have a look at some more energy. Let's ask Spirit for a little bit more advice about how to break this cycle in particular, which is, I think, is almost the thing that diverts you all or your soul twin from what you could do together. So I think Spirit's being really quite firm here, I have to say, Pile 3, because it's very much saying that being on your own, the two of you being on your own, is not the way to have this freedom, is not the way to be. That there is an investment that could come from being together, and that the two of you together is greater than either of you separately. It's that Gestalt effect of the sum being greater than the whole of the part, or the whole being greater than the sum of the parts, sorry. So it's definitely saying that if there was a choice for one to sublimate to the other in terms of their career or in terms of public profile in a past life or now, or if there was one or other is thinking, I'm too busy, being a world beater to be in a relationship, whatever it might be, it's misunderstanding that there's more that you can do together. There's more that you can both achieve together than you could do separately. But there's an ego issue. There is definitely an ego issue. One or other of you, and I suspect it's your soul twin, to be frank, because you're at a reading like this, but it could be either, so that's really up to what resonates to you. One or either of you has put an enormous amount of focus into being seen, and here we got like the King of Wands here, and we've got it again, but it's reversed here, and the Six of Wands is reversed, so it's about winning the battles, being seen, being the victor, rather than necessarily really building what you could build together. So there is a little bit in this, I have to say, Pile 3, where maybe one of the spiritual missions for you and your soul twin is to not compete with each other. Like maybe both of you have a fairly competitive streak. Maybe both of you really want to get out there and do something in the world. And it might be that when you first meet, if you haven't already, that you almost compete with each other. And that's part of the issue. It's because something has happened, I think, a lifetime before, where one or other of you has been hidden away or something. So there's that dynamic to work through, and to become a true partnership more than competing with each other. Turn that competition outwards. Together, the two of you can really make something material in the world, whatever you want to do, plus also hopefully have a really lovely romantic connection. But yeah, there is just a sense that one or other of you, or potentially both, have got used to a pattern of competing and getting attention and whatever else this might be, and you'll do it so much better together, and that's really what your mission is meant to be. So let's have a look at the love energy around for this relationship at the moment, and this could be between the two of you, or it could be other factors that are impinging upon it in this particular lifetime. So firstly, we have regret, but it's reversed. So yes, I do think that on a spiritual soul level, the two of you have some regret for the way that this worked out before. And so there is an awareness, and I think this is a very good sign, about not replicating that in this life. And a lot of that has to do with self-worth. And self-worth isn't necessarily being the top influencer on YouTube, or a movie star, or a CEO of an organisation. Self-worth it's that esteem that comes from knowing who you are authentically. And when you have that self-worth, you can also recognise and work with another person like your soul twin at the same level. So it's picking up the same energy of it's not about external validation and external success. It's about recognising each other on a level of authenticity. And that will give you that success anyway. and passion. And that's lovely. I'm really glad to see that. That suggests there's a lot of passion. So even if you started off competing with each other, and I think some of you may do so or might have done so, there's a lot of passion there, and that's how you can use that energy, and that's really strong and powerful. So let's have a look at another oracle for a little bit more information for you. This is really interesting. Capricorn in this pack's been coming up pretty much, I think, in all the readings that I've done for this one, or at least all but one. So Capricorn is about material status, being in the world, business and so forth. So there's something about that. There was something about it, I think, in a past life, and there's something about it this time. It's also, once you get it right, once you can build, and it's there with the Seven of Pentacles, it is a real indication of success and status and making it together. And I think really it is making the point again, the two of you together are so much stronger than either of you apart. Even though I think both of you apart are probably a force to be reckoned with, together you're much more. We've got tranquilized though. I think that there is something around, tranquilized is sort of where something unconscious is muting your own understanding, your own appreciation of what's going on. And I think it's the same thing. It's around what you or your partner have put value in. So if you wake yourself up from that, wake yourself up and realize what you could do together, that's really all that's required to bring about a much better outcome. But it may also be that for some of you, there is a lot of influence from other people that's sort of getting in your ear or getting in your partner's ear around it. Like, I literally get the sense that some of the people who've come here are either celebrities or will be involved with someone who's a celebrity at some point in your life anyway, and it's like the handlers around you, that kind of feeling. So just be aware of the fact that that could happen so that it doesn't dull what you're trying to achieve, and particularly what you can achieve together. So let's have a look at a little bit more astrological energy around this for you. So firstly, we've got the third quarter, so that's a moon transit, or a moon phase, probably is a better word for it. And this is all about release, and it's out with the old and in with the new, really. And it's about discernment, forgiveness and so forth. So it's about letting go. I think the Spirit is saying, yes, let go of the patterns that weren't working. Forgive each other if you have been competing with each other a bit. Sort of try and connect more towards what you two can do together and competing with the rest of the world. And it's also about decluttering your life a bit, like anything that isn't really serving you, then don't let it get in the way. And cleansing your body too. So some of that tranquilized might be, if you were an emotional eater, for instance, or something like that. There's also that energy of thinking about what's healthy for you and grounding for you. We have the third house, so that's all about communication. So there's something that you two will do together that is about communication, I think. And that's why I keep getting the sense it's very public. It's very much maybe a communication medium that you both would use in some way. Mercury is the planet that rules it, so it's very quick, it's very inventive. So, but it's all about that. It also would suggest that communication between you would be very important. So make sure that you do keep the lines open, don't end up in a little sort of competition with each other that dulls the communication. The 12th house is here too. Now the 12th house is very interesting. I think the 12th house coming up for a soul twin reading is very significant, because the 12th house is your depth psychology house. It's the house where things like the paranormal, that and the 8th house, houses where paranormal issues really come up, psychic connections, soul connections. So it's very much, I think, again, indication that you will meet your soul twin in this life if you haven't already. And you will know it on a soul level, on a gut level, pretty much almost instantly, I would say. So it's a very strong connection between the two of you. And I think it's showing it. But it is interesting too, as I say, because 12th house is depth psychology. So it is also where we have our own shadow. And if the shadow that the two of you have is about this competition for whatever reason, it's worth, if you haven't met the person, first sorting that out for yourself to the degree that you can, because that will be helpful. And if you have met the person, then maybe the two of you working together on that side of things could be helpful. So I'm going to finish up with a card from a very deep deck. It's called Soul Cards, and so I use it for readings where I think really deep spiritual messages are important, and I certainly think a mission with the Soul Twin fits the bill for that. It doesn't have set meanings, so it's really what you take from the image. I will tell you what I take from it, having sort of done the reading and felt the energies of the reading, but I would suggest that you maybe pause the video at the end before clicking off and look at it yourself just to see what you get from it, because these cards feel to me a bit like dream interpretation, where it's really important for your own sense of what you get from it as well. But the card for you is this one. Now that's really interesting, because we've got like a guardian angel, and it would make sense that you would both have the same guardian angel if you were soul twins, and it's all fiery, you know, there's all this sort of like fiery energy which picks up, the wand's energy picks up this sense of being really seen, radiance, all of that sort of thing. But they're closing the eyes of the two people. So I feel like that, I think it's spirit saying to you that close your eyes to the sort of fiery energy of being noticed and being celebrated or whatever. Close your eyes to that so that you can connect on a more profound level. And then I think your guide, your guardian angel would be happy to take the hands off and let you fully see each other. But you can only, I think, fully see each other when you connect on that almost 12th house psychic level, and then understand and see the implications for how you're going to be in the world, because your energy and your combined energy is so fiery and so seen and so alive. That's what I take from it. You may take something else from it entirely. That's the power of that particular card. I hope that that resonates for you as a reading, pile 3. I hope that it makes sense if you have met your soul twin, or that it will if you do. I think there's a lot of potential for the two of you together. It would be amazing to hear about what you do together, if this is already in play, in the comments, or even any of your thoughts about this and about your own patterns if you think you haven't met the person yet, but you can see how you're on a trajectory to this sort of life, and so therefore that sort of person in your life. Love to hear about that if that's the case. Otherwise, if you've enjoyed the reading, please like the video and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in future readings.